Hello everyone, I am Zazubaar, and welcome to a long overdue comic book review. Sorry things have been very slow on the channel lately, mainly just been uploading the regular podcasts. I really don't have an excuse why, because recently I didn't have much going on. Just didn't really have the motivation to do any YouTube videos that was just by myself or review or whatever, so I've kind of just been uploading the podcasts. But about 2 weeks ago, I got a comic book that I really thought I should have reviewed, like, as soon as I was done with it, like, reviewed it as first impressions. Holy shit, I gotta get my thoughts on this on the wax, because it's something that you would think I'd have immediate thoughts on that I have to get out there. But every single time I have a free night and I have the opportunity to sit down and record my thoughts on this thing, I just don't. And right tonight, the night I'm recording this, is kind of my last chance to sit down and get my thoughts recorded on this for a while. So I wanted to finally take the opportunity and sit down and record my review for the first volume of the IDW comic book series, Godzilla Rulers of Earth. Not Earth. That's not a word. Godzilla Rulers of Earth. This, of course, is the newest and current line, the current series being done by IDW in their Godzilla line. This book is the current ongoing. I guess it's gonna last for a year, just like all the Godzilla books seem to. Like each series seems to last for a year, and then they do a new one. I guess this will last for 12 issues. We'll see. So I guess you'd call it a mini series or a maxi series, whatever you want to call it. It's probably going to go on for up until July, June, maybe 12 issues. It's on issue 8 right now, so we'll see how much longer it lasts. Anyway, so of course, newest book in the IDW Godzilla line. So I was very excited to get my hands on it, just because it's Godzilla. I wasn't exceptionally excited, though, because, of course, IDW's track record with Godzilla has been mixed at best. For example, the first series they did, Godzilla Kingdom of Monsters, is terrible. It's pretty bad, at least in my opinion. I know some people kind of have mixed feelings on Kingdom of Monsters. Some people really like it. Others just kind of feel the same way about it as I do. It's like, it's a decent idea. It's horribly executed. Even the idea is not that good. It's just giant monsters showing up and attacking. So it's not like it gets any major points in the Godzilla universe in terms of any originality. It's just kind of generic. Hey, here's this Godzilla monster you know. Like our book, social commentary. I was not a fan. So I haven't even read all of Kingdom of Monsters because of how much I didn't like it. But then they did Gangsters and Goliaths, which I read most of. It was alright. It was pretty good. It suffers from a problem a lot of these books have had, and that's lack of Godzilla. Like, we come here to read Godzilla. His name is in the title, so I expect to see him. And he's not in it for several issues. It's weird. And the story is good in that it's not called the right thing. It shouldn't be called Godzilla. It really should be called Mothra, because it's more of a Mothra story. But not much better than Kingdom of Monsters. A much better story. Then you had Godzilla Legends, which I still haven't read. I should. I've heard mixed things. I've heard some of the issues are good, some of them are bad. I think there's only 4, so, that's a little bit weird. But I do want to read Godzilla Legends. Then you have, I'm actually looking at a catalog right now for all of their Godzilla books. Then you've got the Godzilla Ongoing, which was, I don't know what the fuck you'd call it, just the Godzilla single title. It was just called Godzilla. Which came out last year, which I've talked about. I've talked about it before. I read most of it. I didn't read all of it. And I liked that book quite a bit. It was pretty good, especially the beginning. The ending, it kind of petered out towards the end. But for the most part, it was a good book as well. With a decent story, great art. Much more likable characters than Kingdom of Monsters had. But again, it goes too far towards social satire and political satire that it loses the essence of being a Godzilla story. So kind of lost my interest there, but otherwise it was fairly well done. And then, ladies and gentlemen, you had the masterpiece, easily hands down the best Godzilla thing that IDW has published to date, Godzilla, The Half-Century War, written and drawn by James Stokoe. That book is a masterpiece and just a fantastic, fantastic Godzilla story. It is a wonderful, wonderful book. If you're a Godzilla fan, regardless of being a comic book fan or not, you really should read The Half-Century War. It's just a really good story. Great use of the Godzilla universe. Just fucking read it. It's a great book. But now we get to Rulers of Earth, the current ongoing series. So these are the first 4 issues of Godzilla Rulers of Earth. But again, because of the track record they've had, I wasn't intensely excited. I wasn't like, holy shit, I gotta fucking get this book, at least at first. Even with the news that Matt Frank was going to be drawing it. Matt Frank, of course, is the kind of the people's Godzilla artist. He's kind of the pop fan Godzilla artist. He came from the Godzilla fandom himself, and he draws incredible Godzilla artwork. So his involvement being announced was cool, but it wasn't really enough to get me like, holy shit, I've got to read this book. What got me to say that was what I found out about this series, about Rulers of Earth, is that it's not just a Godzilla book. Well, I mean, Godzilla's the main character, which is something that this has leaps and bounds over Kingdom of Monsters for. But what I mean by that is that this book does something that Godzilla has not done really ever. Because the Godzilla universe and the cast of Godzilla monsters may be vast and wonderful. And IDW has brought in most of those monsters that we haven't seen on film in years. But what Godzilla has been lacking, that fans have been aching to see, is for Godzilla to cross over with the other famous and well-loved Toho monster cast. You know, characters that Ishiro Honda, Tomiyuki Tanaka, E.G. Sabraya brought to life that is very much so akin to Godzilla, but the King of the Monsters never got to come across, to cross over with, and we really wanted to see that. And this book, that nothing else has done, is doing that. They are bringing in non-Godzilla Toho monsters into the universe. Or not non-Toho, I'm sorry. Other non-Godzilla Toho monsters that are not in the Godzilla universe, or have never been in the Godzilla universe, or they're debatably in the Godzilla, or they've never met Godzilla. And it's awesome. It's fantastic. That's a fascinating concept. Getting to see characters that haven't been in anything for 40 years. The thing that really got me excited. You know, I love me some Manda and I love me some Gazora. But the thing that got me excited and said, alright, fuck this, I've got to read this book, is the announcement that the fucking Gargantuas are going to be in this book. Sanda and Gyra are going to be in this book and come face to face with Godzilla. How cool is that? Excuse me. I just said dinner, sorry. How cool is that? Sanda and Gyra, the Gargantuas, potentially the most famous monsters to come out of Toho, next to Godzilla, next to Mothra, Rodan, all the monsters in the Godzilla canon. The Gargantuas are right there, as famous, as loved as Godzilla is, and they've only had one appearance. They've only had one movie. And Godzilla fans and Kaiju fans in general have been dying to see them for decades. And now, thanks to Chris Mowry and Matt Frank, we're going to see them again. We are going to see Sanda and Gyra not only just returning, which is big enough, but they're going to be in Godzilla's book. They're going to meet Godzilla, which is insanely cool. Very, very excited about that. That was the thing that got me excited. And then, then they continue to announce other monsters they were going to bring in. The other thing that got me really excited, which is something we're going to start the review off on now that we're 10 minutes in, the thing that also got me to be like, alright, I've got to read this book, is the first monster that Godzilla fights in Godzilla Rulers of Earth. So, before we get into that, because that's going to kind of get us into the review itself, what's the premise of Godzilla Rulers of Earth? Yes, bringing back old Toho monsters that aren't Godzilla monsters is cool, but, you got to support that. You can't just do that because, Kingdom of Monsters' whole promise was, hey, we're bringing in Godzilla monsters that have never been seen in comics before. that's great, but you gotta give us something back. You gotta do a little bit more with your story that'll kind of get Godzilla fans excited, and and get us to keep reading the book, because yes, seeing Anguirus drawn on the page is awesome, but you gotta make it interesting, and make it a good Godzilla story, which Kingdom of Monsters wasn't. Then you get to Rulers of Earth, and the premise. Let me just say this: this is fucking fantastic. Godzilla Rulers of Earth easily neck and neck with Half Century War in terms of quality. Half Century War is a little bit more of an original and kind of just good story, but in terms of just sheer excitement and quality of storytelling and excitement and all that, this definitely is at least as good as Half Century War was. And the premise of this that I didn't really know about these comics is that everything except for Gangsters and Goliaths, Legends, and Half Century War is in continuity. The three main Godzilla annuals that have been going on, Kingdom of Monsters, the single title, and now this, are all in continuity, which I didn't know. Because the Godzilla ongoing that they did last year, never really made reference to the fact that there have been monsters in that it was in continuity with Kingdom of Monsters. It made no reference to it. None of the characters came back. It really didn't indicate that at all. Which, again, I didn't find a problem with because I hated Kingdom of Monsters. But I liked that book, so, when that book ended, I was like, oh, I guess that's it for these characters. Apparently not, because apparently all that stuff is in this universe, which is really cool. And what Chris Mowry and Matt Frank do is they don't use the events and the quality of that story to enforce this one. They don't use it and continue in that style, like, oh, that was great, so let's keep doing the same. No, they bring their own twist to it, which is a better twist, but they use the foundation, the events, and just the sheer objective stuff of what happened in that story, and they use it to inform their story here. Biggest example of this, and spoilers, if you haven't read the first four issues of Godzilla Rulers of Earth, do not continue here. If you haven't and you're a Godzilla fan, fucking read it. Fucking go out to your local comic shop and pick up Godzilla Rulers of the Earth Volume 1. It's amazing. Read it. Especially if you're a Godzilla fan. There are so many goddamn references, it's insane. I couldn't even begin to list them, but just look at the first page on Google Images. Just look at the first fucking page. It's filled with at least 5 references to previous Godzilla material. So, if that doesn't sell you on buying this book, I don't know what will, and I don't think I can. So, listen, Matt Frank drew the Yalin. Fuck you. Go read this book. Anyway, so spoilers from this point on. Definitely, come back to this video after you've read the book if you haven't already. Now, what the fuck was I going to spoil? Oh, okay, I remember. Alright, so major story element about Rulers of Earth that I really, really dug and I thought was great. Well, I think the biggest one, and again, what impressed me most about it is how it uses a shitty story it uses it to its advantage to tell this story, and the biggest example of that is that they've introduced different monsters from the Godzilla universe at different intervals in these series of books. In the first one, in Kingdom of Monsters, it seemed to all be creatures that lived on land. Land-based kaiju, as they call them. Then, in the second series, in the Godzilla ongoing they did the year after, it seemed the major linchpin of that plot was monsters from space. And yes, they had other land-based kaiju in it, but the main antagonistic force behind that story were space monsters. Gigan, Space Godzilla, Monster X, Kaiser Ghidorah. All these monsters were introduced there. And they don't explain King Ghidorah's connection to Kaiser Ghidorah, though, which was weird. Unless they don't... I don't remember. I haven't read it in a while, but I guess they don't call him Kaiser Ghidorah. I don't remember. Because officially he's not called Kaiser Ghidorah. Technically he's labeled as Monster X2 in official Toho Godzilla stuff. So who knows? I don't care. Well, I do care, but whatever. It's inconsequential. The ending of that book is kind of a mess anyway. Um, but again, it's an interesting idea and one that was not introduced in those books. So it's very original here. And what they do with it is, okay, we've gone to land, we've gone to space, and we've introduced those monsters. The monsters seem to be appearing in waves. And this book seems to be getting to the idea of there's something causing this. Something is causing this to happen. And because in this book, all of the monsters are coming from the sea. All of the new monsters introduced in this book come from the ocean. And the main monsters that are introduced, first and foremost, fucking Zilla. Goddamned Zilla. Yes, the American Godzilla is the first monster in this book and gets 2 issues devoted to him. Let's talk about this for a minute. Okay, first things first. The 1998 Godzilla movie is a piece of shit. I don't think I have to say that. I think everybody watching this review knows my feelings on Godzilla 98. That being said, that monster is not Godzilla. But a little movie came along in 2004, 10 years ago, this year, so it fits. 10 years ago, a movie came along called Godzilla Final Wars. And say what you want about Final Wars, but it did one very brilliant thing. It said, yes, that was not Godzilla, and yes, the movie wasn't great. But come on, guys. That monster design ain't bad. It could be used to do good. The shit that movie did could be used for good. You know what I mean? So here you go. Let's make him his own thing, and let's have him fight Godzilla. Now, Zilla fans, because yes, that's a thing, will tell you that appearance by Zilla was kind of embarrassing because they were like, hey, he came in and got his ass kicked. I think it fits. Because he's significantly smaller and whatever. We won't get into that fight here. But it kind of made sense that he got his ass kicked. And then, but even non-Zilla fans, even people who hated the American Godzilla, who saw the potential of Zilla being turned into his own kaiju, said it's kind of short. And the thing is, and Zilla fans who might be listening, maybe this will give you some comfort. Most of the Godzilla monsters in Final Wars got shit canned anyway, because they just didn't get the proper screen time because the monsters were quick and killed in that movie because there were so many of them and the plot was leaning so heavily on the humans that Godzilla himself kind of got shortchanged. It's late. So, take comfort in that. But anyway, that was a problem. And Rulers of Earth is like, hey, say what you want about Zilla, but that dude's got potential. If you watch the animated series, Godzilla the animated series, there's a good kaiju There's a good kaiju in there. There's a legitimately interesting and cool looking monster in there. So what do you say? Let's use it. So Rulers of Earth takes Zilla and turns him into his own thing. Officially makes Zilla his own respectable kaiju. And how do you do that? By giving him a legitimate fight with Godzilla. It goes, we've put Zilla 98 in the past. The movie is 14 years old. No, longer than that now. How long? 16 years old. Holy shit. I'm getting old. Wait. I'm sorry. I have to do some math. Yeah, 16 years old. Holy shit, I'm getting old. That movie is 16 years old. My God. So that movie came out 16 years ago. Fucking get over it, and let's turn this guy into his own thing. And that's what they do in this book. And how you do that? How do you put a kaiju who is significantly weaker than Godzilla, and validate him to Godzilla fans? You go, all right. This guy has his own powers, though. There's stuff that he has that Godzilla doesn't have, that when you put them together, he can give Godzilla kind of a run for his money, at least survive in a fight where it'll look cool. And if there's anything that Rulers of Earth does exceptional, the fights are amazing. God damn, can Matt Frank draw a Godzilla fight. Mother of God, it's fucking gorgeous. It's very dynamic. Really the big draw here is the art. It is a gorgeously drawn book. It's absolutely beautiful. His art is extremely dynamic and extremely filled with personality and variety, and everything comes to life. These monsters come to life and move on the page. They're not just these two-dimensional things that are just ramming into each other. They move around. They have a personality. They have a wit to them. They have an intellect. There are quirks to each monster. It's insanely well done. And Mowry's writing helps that as well. It's not a book that's all art and no story, though. The story definitely in places kind of leans on the art. In places, it's a good Godzilla story. It's a lot more in line with the Showa series than anything else. You know what? No, that's wrong. It's kind of like, it's very Millennium. It's very, very kind of Godzilla against Mechagodzilla-ish, I would say. Because here's the thing. Godzilla is very much so his usual dark and destructive self, but he's kind of on that different path that he was at the end of the Heisei series. He's not a good guy, but he's kind of walking the line. You know, when he fought Space Godzilla and he fought Destroya, that kind of thing. So he's definitely on that different path. And that definitely kind of helps because this Godzilla story is pretty lighthearted, as opposed to something like Half Century War, which is quite dark. This is fairly lighthearted, which is great because Godzilla is getting very dark seemingly in film right now. So I think, as a guy who loves all Godzilla, you know, I think it's good that we've got a variety that, okay, Godzilla's going to be dark on film, but in comics, we're going to keep him the same character, but the universe around him is going to be much more sci-fi oriented, and we're going to do everything that the movie would deem too goofy. So it's like, alright, the movie doesn't want to do, you know, the Gargantuas, or the Gargantuas is a weird example. The new movie doesn't want to do Gigan. Fuck it, we're gonna do Gigan. And they bring in Gigan, that kind of thing, and it's awesome. It's insanely entertaining, and again, it definitely leans on the art, but the story is so lighthearted, and fairly. I would say that it used the word camp definitely comes to mind, but in a good way. It's good, lighthearted monster action science fiction. It's so in line with a good old classic Toho movie that it's not even funny. So I would say that as a Godzilla fan who loves all Godzilla, I think it's something I appreciated, is seeing a Godzilla who stays true to his roots in terms of character, but is in a universe that's a lot more open to whatever from the Godzilla universe that you want to bring in, because it's not going to be too silly as long as you make it believable for this universe. But anyway, back to the Zilla fight. It's easily my favorite part of the whole book. Definitely that and the ending are tied. The ending is also fantastic. Two fights, but they're both so well done, and Godzilla is so well personified that you can't help but love them. The Zilla fight is just so dynamic, and it's something that we never got to see on film in Final Wars. That you know, you can't help but love it. And I think my favorite part of it is the fact that Zilla gets to do everything that made him different from Godzilla that would help him in a fight. And the biggest example of this is Zilla burrowing underground. Zilla, there's a great reference to Final Wars in Rulers of Earth, where the fight kind of starts off the same way as it did in Rulers of Earth, in Final Wars, where Zilla kind of charges at Godzilla, and Godzilla flicks him in the air into a building, and Godzilla kills him with his atomic blast. That exact thing happens, except when Zilla gets thrown into the building crumbles, and in the smoke, Godzilla still fires his blast, and he roars thinking he's won, and then he looks down, and there's a giant hole in the ground where the building went down. Zilla burrowed under the ground, and then he comes up and starts slashing at Godzilla. And there's this great moment where Zilla's under Godzilla, like scratching him and cutting off skin. Godzilla just gets pissed and fucking smashes his head with his fists. It's awesome. It's spectacular. Oh, it's great. This is just a really good book. Again, the story definitely leans on the art. And if you're one of those comic book readers who's like, no, the story has to be amazing. It's got to be deep and character driven and very, very emotional. This may not be your cup of tea. This is a book written by Godzilla fans for Godzilla fans, because I think IDW understands that as a comic book, as a Godzilla comic book, really the biggest people that are going to buy their book are Godzilla fans. So, let's market to them. And the Godzilla fan base is wide enough and is able to be reached well enough that I think that they know that this book is mainly going to cater to them and cater to them very, very well. And that's who they go after. They're like, if anybody else reads it, that's great, but we're focusing on the G fans because they're the ones who are going to appreciate this the most and really enjoy this and get the most out of it. So let's make it for them. And that's what the book is. It's by Godzilla fans for Godzilla fans. So that being said, I'm going to ask the same question that I asked for Half Century War when I raved about that book is, can a non-Godzilla fan pick it up and read it? Yes, but they're not going to appreciate it the same way a Godzilla fan will. I think Half Century War is a lot more open to non-Godzilla fans than this is. There's really only 2 or 3 parts of that book that a non-Godzilla fan would go like, what the fuck is going on? This book, all over the place. It's got continuity stuff carrying over from the previous series. But more than that, there's so many references and parts of the Godzilla universe are brought in that, again, they're references to the movies that are not expounded upon. The biggest part of this is that towards the end of the book, they bring in all sea creatures. So they bring in Manda and Gazora, and the biggest one they bring in, one of the main villains of the book, is Destroya. And Destroya in this universe seems to be an alien genetic experiment that gets out, goes under the ocean, and kind of takes life like a microscopic life and uses that and turns into a kaiju. And this is spoilers for the next 4 issues. So if you've read these 4 issues and you have no idea what's coming and don't want to know, pause it here and skip ahead a couple seconds because I'm going to spoil something. What they're building up with these first 4 issues and with the aliens in this universe, the Devonians, which is a great reference to Destroya's original origin, being a creature mutated from the Devonian period. What they're building up is the reappearance of Orga, who hasn't been in anything since Godzilla 2000, which is very cool. So that's what they're building up to. So what they're doing is they're saying, as long as we have access to these creatures' DNA, we can kind of do whatever we want with them and make them into any kaiju that we want. So what they do is they have this, whatever the experiment is, it gets out and turns into Destroya. And the fight with Destroya is amazing. It's fucking spectacular. And what makes it especially cool is that it starts out with Godzilla injured. Because what happens is Gazora and Manda pop up in the Pacific Ocean, and they attack an aircraft carrier. If you know aircraft carriers have nuclear reactors in them for a power source. So they destroy the aircraft carrier, and they go, excuse me, and they destroy it. They kill all of the soldiers on it, and this attracts the attention of Godzilla. Godzilla shows up at this destroyed scene, and nobody knows why he's there. And he pops up and he does something, and right when he's done doing it, he gets attacked by something. Something attacks him underwater, and the next time we see him, he's on the coast of California, and he crashes onto the beach, injured with a giant gash in his side, and he seems to be disorientated. Just before this, a bunch of the little Destroyas, which you see in kind of the middle half of Godzilla vs. Destroya, pop up and attack San Diego, and Godzilla pops up there as well, and is injured, and wakes up right when the little Destroyas hit Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, and Godzilla wakes up and starts, killing these little things, and then out of the water comes Big Destroya, the main Destroya, and Godzilla fights it, and it's a spectacular monster fight. And Mothra shows up and helps Godzilla, and there's this whole thing where what the soldiers find out is that Godzilla intentionally lured the monster on land so that way Mothra could help with the fight. And what Godzilla also did that was quite smart is he waited for Mothra to start fighting Destroya so that way he could go back into the ocean and reveal what he took from the aircraft carrier, which is the nuclear reactor. Godzilla grabbed it and is using it as an energy source to heal himself and get more powerful so that way he can team up with Mothra to kill Destroya. And it's this big character moment for Godzilla because he's spent the past 2 series just being a death machine and going around killing people and wiping out cities, and now he seems to be kind of leaning towards being on the up and up, and kind of like what they mention here is Godzilla teaming up with another monster, helping each other to save the world, which they did in the last series as well, which is really, really cool. I really dug that. I thought that was excellent. I just thought that was awesome. And it's a great there's another great character, but what my point of that was, and I'm sorry I keep getting off track, was that Godzilla using the nuclear reactor for energy is kind of a reference to the Heisei series, because that's what Godzilla did back then. He would attack a nuclear reactor and steal the energy from it, and that's how he lived, and that's how he got energy. I mean, you infer it here that's what happens, but I don't think I think non-Godzilla fans would need a Godzilla fan to come in and explain that. So it's a little bit weird in that regard. But again, it's awesome for a Godzilla fan, but for a non-Godzilla fan, I don't know if they'd appreciate that in the same way. Yeah, this book is excellent. It's really good. It's really it's fast-paced. There's a lot of great references to previous Godzilla stuff. The plot, again, it's nothing that's going to, just rock your world and be like, this is life-changing. This is going to change the way you look at humanity and at society. No, it's an alien invasion plot, but it's heavily rooted in the past of Godzilla with that premise for a plot line. And as that, it's excellent. But again, it's kind of a lighthearted, over the top, kind of, popcorn action Godzilla story, and as that, again, it is excellent. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to mention. It's just filled with great moments. The human cast is interesting because they actually bring back the protagonist from Kingdom of Monsters, Woods, who I did not like at all in that first series. He comes back here and is significantly more interesting and significantly more likable because he has this very deep connection with Godzilla, and he seems to have this kind of conflicting, like, I hate you, but I'm used to you. And I think that's very interesting because he looks at Godzilla and goes, this is the monster that killed my family, but I've been around him for so long now and I know him so well that it's ascended that. I don't hate him in the same way. It's really interesting. I really want to see where it goes. A lot of this is set up for the rest of the story, so I'm really interested to see where this goes in Volume 2. But aside from that, I'm very excited to see where this storyline goes. I thought that this story was excellent. If you're a Godzilla fan and you haven't read it, definitely be sure to check it out. It's all great stuff. Again, the art is spectacular. If you're a Godzilla fan, just the things that are brought up are so Godzilla fan oriented that you can't help but love it. Just good entertainment, man. It's just good entertainment. So, if you haven't already, check out Godzilla Rulers of Earth Volume 1. Pick it up at your local comic shop. Otherwise, they've got plenty of copies on Amazon, so go over there and check it out. And enjoy Chris Mowry's writing and Matt Frank's gorgeous art. It's just all great. I think that's going to do it for this review. In terms of a score, I'm going to give Godzilla Rulers of Earth a 4.5 out of 5. If anything, it's just lacking in the character development department, and it's lacking a little bit in it's lacking in development in general, I think, in certain regards. The story is very fast-paced, and I feel like at points they keep moving on. They move on before they can develop an idea, which is a little bit annoying. It's like, oh, that's an interesting idea. Then it's like, fucking Gigans attacking Las Vegas. Ah! So I think a slower pace might be the best thing for this book. But we'll see. I definitely want to see where it goes, and I really dug this first volume. Anyway, so 4.5 out of 5 from me. So if you're a Godzilla fan, be sure to check it out. But otherwise, I think that's it. So thank you very much for watching and listening, or whatever the fuck it is you do. Anyway, so thanks a lot. Announcements for this week. This is big. So of all the things I've been doing recently, the biggest and most consistent have been the Sons of Sarazawa podcast and the Demons from Outer Space, our SOS Network podcasts. By the way, if you haven't already, be sure to go on to Facebook and like the Sons of Sarazawa Network homepage so you can get more updates on the Demons from Outer Space and the Sons of Sarazawa podcast and Shoe Watch and all of our content and everything there. So be sure to go there and check that out for updates on that. Now, that being said, no Demons from Outer Space this week because Dylan is going to the mountains. So no Demons from Outer Space this week. Nobody is sadder about this than I am, because I love doing that show. So that's it's gonna be it sucks that we're not gonna do it this week, but that's okay. Hopefully our listeners will forgive us and just get excited for the Sons of Sarazawa podcast episode 14. Yeah, episode 14 coming this weekend. So be sure to look out for that. We're gonna record that on Saturday and get that up on hopefully Sunday. Try for Sunday. Aim for Sunday. See if Sunday happens. Anyway, so hope for Sunday for the Sons of Sarazawa podcast. Anyway, so I think that's going to do it for this video and all the announcements. So again, no DFOS this week, and SOS is coming this weekend. I'm going to try my level best to get something else up in place of Demons from Outer Space this week to fill the void. I don't know if I'm going to have time, which is the problem, but if I have time, I will do something. But no promises. I'm going to try and get something up, but probably not. Which it sounds like, oh, what the fuck? But it probably won't happen only because I just don't have the time. If I had time, I would get a fill-in, but I just don't have time. Anyway, so that's going to do it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, listening, whatever it is you did. Whatever you did was beautiful. And that's going to do it from me, Zazubaar. So, until next time, sayonara, kids.